Joining us to talk about these lackluster job figures, Michael Greiner. He is an associate professor of management at Oakland University's School of Business Administration. Always great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, Trump didn't like the last jobs report and fired the head of U.S. labor statistics. He can't be happy with what's unfolding now. So put this latest information from July to August in perspective for us.
I think that's really valuable because it's worth remembering that last year, the United States was typically adding between 200 and 300,000 jobs a month. Now compare that with 22,000, and you can see the kind of dramatic drop that we're dealing with now. And as the reporter mentioned earlier, actually they revised down the figures for June to the point where you actually had negative numbers for June, where we'd actually lost jobs on a net basis. And that's the first time we've seen that happen since 2010, when the United States, of course, was in the middle of the Great Recession. So we're talking some dismal job figures here.
Okay, and to pick up on that, it's not just an uptick in jobless numbers, but there are fewer available jobs right now, fewer than the people out there actually seeking employment. And that is the first time in how long?
Oh yes, that's the first time I think since we've seen since really the Great Recession. You know what we're seeing here is totally a manufactured crisis, something that didn't have to happen. And I can tell you from talking to my own students, people are having trouble finding jobs out there. So I think that we can expect then that the Fed will be reducing interest rates. But then the thing you have to ask yourself is it going to be helping? Because at the same time as we're dealing with these poor job figures, we're also dealing with the fact that we continue to get higher and higher numbers on inflation.
Okay, Trump has a history of lashing out and instantly deflecting and casting blame when bad information comes his way. How is the administration reacting now? And let's talk more about the tariffs and driving wedges between the United States and its allies. To what degree is that having an adverse effect? And I do want to talk about one positive thing, because remember, Japan has vowed to sink some $550 billion into the U.S. economy to create jobs, hopefully manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, there are some of these pledges out there, but you have to remember, I mean, there's no real enforcement mechanism for them or anything like that. And, you know, at a certain point here, these issues are driven by the larger economy. You know, is the U.S. economy doing well? Is there demand for the products here? And my concern is that as people are losing jobs, you're going to see it impacting the consumer spending. And that, of course, is the biggest source of economic activity here in the United States.
Yeah, and what about the tariffs and the fact that our allies are looking for trade deals with other countries?
Yeah, this has been something that I think is, again, a real manufactured crisis that we have here in the United States. Because we just saw, for example, where the Chinese, the Russians, and the Indians, along with other groups, have gotten together and really were kind of coordinating their responses. And frankly, India is one country where we should have been able to essentially move toward greater cooperation. And instead, what we're seeing is they're being driven toward other countries as a result of the actions of this administration.
You know, also manufacturing numbers are down, losing jobs there, and that's dragging other sectors down. So what other sectors are ailing, and is there a hint of bright news? Anything out there good? Where is the U.S. adding jobs?
Yeah, you know, it is really disturbing, actually. And you know, there is actually an increase in healthcare, although that's slowed somewhat because of the fact that, of course, there have been some cuts to Medicaid, which could impact then the healthcare jobs that are available. But you have to remember, healthcare is something that's really not affected by tariffs or inflation. That's a necessity that people get one way or another. There was an increase also in hospitality, a slight increase as well in retail, but really the shocking numbers are when you look at the at manufacturing, where there's been a big drop in employment. And I think that can certainly be, again, laid directly at the doorstep of some of the policies of this administration. Okay,
everybody's talked about the possibility of a recession since Trump took office. What are the possibilities now? And at the other end of the spectrum, what do these lousy numbers do for the possibility of a significant rate cut coming up?
Well, I think that there is a real concern about a recession at this point. I mean, I think that it's, at a minimum, the United States is going into kind of a period of stagflation. We're going to see less jobs available, less hiring, higher unemployment, and as well as higher inflation, because we're already seeing both those things right now. I think that the odds are we're going to see a rate cut from the Fed. You know, the president has asked for a 3% rate cut, which is absurd. I think that we could certainly see a probably actually a 0.25% rate cut, just a little bit off the top. And the reason that it would be such a small rate cut is, again, because the Fed is looking at inflation as a potential concern. They don't want to cut so much that they're driving inflation up. I think there is going to be some rate cut, but will it have a huge impact on the economy? It's hard to say that it will. And one more thing I think that's worth pointing out that the Fed is concerned about also are the long-term interest rates here, which have been going up, because I think there's a legitimate concern about the fact that the Fed seems to be getting politicized. And as that happens, it makes it more likely that long-term interest rates will go up.